Well, you can't have missed it because this week the Chancellor of the Exchequer unveiled his final spring budget before the general election, as well as changes to the tax regime for non-doms, reductions in capital gains tax and changes to the higher child benefit thresholds. The key measure announced was a 2p cut in national insurance, which follows the 2p cut that was already announced back in the autumn statement. The government claiming that that total tax cut will save the average worker £900, but does this go far enough? Well, we're going to talk now to Justin Urquhart-Stewart, economist and founder of Seven Investment Management, to get his reflections. Good morning, Justin.
Good morning.
Good morning. So what did you make of the budget? Was it enough in a general election year?
Yeah, well, it's astonishingly dull. You would think, actually, if you were going to have an election, yes, you're quite right, we're going to have one this year, you'd think it'd actually be full of dynamism and excitement and really fill us all with the one word that runs an economy called confidence. But it didn't. Actually, you have lots and lots of detail, because we know for full well this Chancellor lacks a lot of detail, but it means actually you can't really quite work out where is this good or bad. And by the time we actually get the details of the speech in something called the Red Book, which comes out at about sort of 11 or 12 o'clock that night, and only sad kids like this one actually ends up having to read it, trying to work their way through. But the net result is actually middle class will get some little bit of a tax break. Yes, you've got national insurance coming down, and even as a hint, they might actually get rid of national insurance altogether. Done as a hint, that would be a good idea, but they didn't fall through it. So actually, we all looked in some astonishment. We were covering this on talkTV and think, well, where's the rabbit coming out of the hat? If he had, it was probably long gone and now a pair of gloves. So not a very exciting budget, and certainly not one to inspire you with this government.
Well, I think we were all waiting for that rabbit to emerge. And when the Chancellor started talking about, sort of hinting towards wider reforms to national insurance, as though it might be got rid of immediately, certainly on the green benches, I sat up in my chair expecting that to come. And then 2p cut, still a good thing. But do you think that it could be a manifesto pledge to actually get rid of national insurance and have a single kind of more simplified rate of income tax?
I think that's a very good chance. And what they're doing here, doing this, frankly, I think it's a bit stupid, actually, just almost saying I'm going to be doing this, but it's got nothing to do with this budget. But nonetheless, no, it makes a lot of sense, because actually, of course, income tax, well, it's the same as insurance, which is also a form of income tax. So you could put that together, and whilst we're doing it, we could simplify the taxation system. There's a book called Tolley's Tax Guide, for the book that accountants take to bed with them for some strange excitement. About 10 years ago, it had about 9,000 pages. It's now got over 15,000 pages. And we used to have something known as the Office of Tax Simplification. But I think they've given up and been broken up now. They've given it all together. Here is a great opportunity for a reforming Chancellor, which you'd love to be, to actually simplify, make sure there's some key actual incentives for new business, and the VAT limit you put up by a small amount. None of this is going to make great shakes or get us all terribly excited. And even the ones where they were talking about increase to your ISA. But again, that's tiny as well. So frankly, this is incredibly dull, and you wouldn't actually tie this to actually being a general election, unless you're going to fall asleep during that as well.
I think the thing that confused me the most is on capital gains tax, that was reduced, and the Chancellor himself cited the Laffer curve, as in if you lower the tax rate, you'll actually receive more tax revenue because more people will pay that tax. And yet that approach isn't being taken with corporation tax.
Well, it's really stupid, isn't it? Corporation tax, it's not actually, it brings about 100 billion a year, which is a lot of money, but, compare that with the amount of interest we pay on our debt, which is 100 billion. 100 billion just on your credit card debt, effectively, that's what that is. And so, the difference they were making with this, with corporation tax, won't really have any impact at all. But yes, it's a bit lower, but to really give people confidence that Britain's a good place to invest is, I suppose, good to have a sort of steady-as-she-goes budget, but you do to inspire people to actually say, yes, they're going to be voting for them. And what's most important is the rest of the world is looking at Britain. Do we trust you? You're not going to go bust or anything like that. But the rather short-term Prime Minister of mistrust managed to upset not just markets, but overseas companies looking at Britain saying, I don't think I trust this lot at the moment. I think I'll wait how this plays out and wait till next year, which doesn't exactly help your economy get out of recession. So not much good, I'm afraid.
Well, Justin, I'm curious on this point. Of course, you set up an investment management company. You've really got your kind of finger on the pulse of investors wanting to come to Britain. Based on where we are at the moment, would you say that Britain is an attractive place to invest for foreign companies?
Well, first of all, the most important thing with a business is you've got rule of law. We sort of take that for granted. But our legal system is seen as actually being rather good. Again, complicated, but trustworthy. We have a pretty good financial services sector. So, the money's in the right sort of place. Yes, of course, there are always things that go wrong from time to time. And we've seemed to have all the right sort of financial infrastructure. And if they can make taxes a bit lower for corporations as well, you will start getting more companies coming back in. The interesting point, again, they missed this. It was actually our biggest growth area is smaller companies, and particularly those tech companies, which you'll find often around the universities. So they have things like Silicon Glen, Silicon Fen, Silicon Roundabout, all of those elements. And those are the new businesses. You don't have to give them money, give them tax breaks to actually make sure they can be developed and get larger. What happens is we start the companies, and that's all well and good, whereupon the Americans say, I tell you what, we'll buy that and take it back to California. And that's happening an awful lot. No, get people to have more investing in the UK, and they're doing some bit towards it, but not really enough to engage people to say, I'm going to be investing in Britain. Half people don't know how to. And also, there isn't enough range of choice.
Well, the government, of course, a year or two ago introduced investment zones, I think really the 12 to 15 around the country, based around those knowledge and tech clusters with some sort of tax incentives there. Do you think that'll be enough to really encourage further investments?
Well, yeah, it could be. It's sad to see how they work. I'm always very suspicious of the government saying, we're here to help. The governments don't normally help. What the government should do is make life easier. Don't give money away to companies. There's lots of money here, but make sure people who have got money, pensioners, for example, with lots of money tied up in our pension schemes, and use that for creating more investments in Britain. Make it tax simpler and encouraging for more companies to invest in plant and materials, because that's how you get around the bane of our lives of the past 15 years, which has been productivity. We're not seen as a very productive economy, not as dynamic as others. Mind you, others are having similar trouble as well. Germany used to be the shining economic god of Europe. Now it's looking a bit slow and tacky altogether. So whilst we can congratulate ourselves, shouldn't congratulate ourselves that we're doing better than Germany, what we need to do is actually take some initiatives to make us look like a tax-efficient area where people can come and invest their money, they know it's secure and safe, and there are opportunities to actually make that money grow. Therefore, also employing more people who, as you quite rightly say, then pay more tax, and so the government gets better. It's money for nothing, as long as you've got some imagination to use it.
Well, we heard the Chancellor talking about growth quite often during his statement, and he also outlined that growth can't be based on migration alone. And yet, looking at the OBR's figures, I think forecasting roughly 350,000 people net migration over the next 5 years. Do you think we should be focused more on kind of GDP per capita rather than a kind of obsession with overall growth figures?
Yeah, I think that's a very good point. If you look at these figures and take, for example, the population of Germany and divide that into the GDP, the value of the German economy, and you'll end up as having a figure of about $36,000 per head. That's what they're worth. In America, that same figure comes out at about $54,000. It's a wealthier country. By the way, if you do that same calculation in China, it comes out at about $6,000, i.e. tiny in comparison. Funny enough, although Britain's smaller than Germany, actually our amount per head that we're worth, the overall value of the country, is about 35,000, i.e. pretty close to the Germans. And if you want to be rude about the French, well, why not? They come out at about 28,000. So we're not as bad as people think. It's just that we're not taking the initiative to actually develop this further. And whether it's immigration or not, we need more people working. And unfortunately, after COVID, an awful lot of people, quite rightly, took time off because they were ill, and they had obviously the furlough scheme as well, but they haven't come back. And that's the issue. We need more incentives to actually make it worth your while coming back. And the Chancellor sort of tried to do that, and he said that's what he was going to do, but there weren't exactly huge, great announcements to say, I'm going to get off my backside and go to work again. Now, actually, more people saying, I think I'll take an early retirement. Frankly, I don't think I could do that. I'd go balmy.
I think I'd be the same, Justin. Well, let's give you another job right now. We're going to put you in the hot seat. You're Chancellor for one day and you've got a chance to enact one policy. What is it that the one thing that you would do?
I would be making sure there is tax-efficient investment going into small businesses. Where are big businesses of the future? The answer is, well, they're currently small businesses. You've got them to grow. Give them the money, the tax breaks to get investment, and that's how you get those smaller companies going. They'll be worth more, they'll employ more, and also they breed it sounds rather strange, but actually in a tech hub, you'll find that you'll have 2 or 3 internet or high-tech businesses, and people leave them and start off a similar business. So you create this lovely nest effect. So some of these free ports around the country will help that overall. But frankly, there's a certain amount of tinkering going on rather than a full-blooded, enthusiastic budget saying, follow me, I know where we're going. With this government at the moment, I'm not so sure they know where they're going, so I don't think I'll be following them.